Welcome back to Relationship Revolution. In this session, we're going to talk about the 5 different types of goals or interests. You can use the acronym TRIPS, T-R-I-P-S, to remember those 5 levels. T is tangibles, R is relationship or roles, I is identity, P is the process you use to resolve a disagreement, and S is systemic expectations. If you want, you can kind of think of these 5 levels as an iceberg. The principles, an iceberg, if you go into an iceberg field, you see many different icebergs. However, many times, 4 or 5 different iceberg peaks are all connected to the same berg underneath the water. That's the way the trips work. The tangible things, the things we can sense with our 5 senses, touch, taste, smell, and the others. Those are all the things that are above the surface, the things that we easily find ourselves talking about. But the things that cause disagreements to turn into conflicts. By the way, a disagreement is, I disagree with you. I see things differently. A conflict is, I disagree with you. I see things differently and you're a jerk. Adrenaline comes into that. We'll talk about that more later. The thing that causes disagreements to turn into conflicts are the RIPS, the R-I-P-S, that are under the surface of the iceberg, the relationship roles, the identity, the process, and the systemic expectations. So, some examples of tangible things. Who sets up the chairs? Which restaurant do we go eat at? What is the best route to get to the restaurant? Hey, what should our website look like? Those are all things that, we can sense and give reports to each other about. Now, relationships and roles, identity, process, and systemic expectations. These are things that oftentimes we have defined deep in our psyche somewhere that we don't realize we have defined. And when somebody tells us that they disagree with us on the level of one of those things that we have deeply defined, it causes our adrenaline to kick in and makes us head into conflict. I wish I could explain this principle really quickly. When I first was introduced to this concept, it took me about 6 months before I got it. In Dialogue Dojo, when we're working together on this, sometimes people click on this concept within about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of practice and running into the concept. So I'll try to do my best in a video, but you're just going to have to practice and think about this and dig into it more to get it. Why is it important? Because later when we talk about listening, we're going to talk about reframing, which is a wonderful level of listening that you can never get to unless you comprehend the 5 levels of discussions that people have. So, tangible, relationship roles, identity, process, systemic expectations. The relationship roles is how am I supposed to behave given what role I have? So, I have opinions about how a dad should behave, what a dad should do, what responsibilities a dad does. You probably have opinions about what responsibilities a dad has, or a mom. And if we both wrote down on a card what we thought those responsibilities were and compared them, probably they won't match up. So, if we get together to try to figure out how a dad should behave and we don't have that conversation, we'll always have a conflict about how a dad should behave. This is why a lot of churches have trouble with what is the role of a pastor. If you set 10 people down and ask them to write that out, you'll get 10 different lists of the roles of a pastor. It really helps groups to sit down, write those things out, and make it so that we all have the same things on our list for each role in the organization. The next level is identity. Identity is who I tell myself I am. Most of us have many, many identities, and they're summarized in about 2 or 3 words. I am, or I am not. I am smart. I am ugly. I am intelligent. I am dumb. I am capable. I am not capable. We just have these summaries deep down in us. And one of the keys to changing disagreements from disagreements, changing conflicts from being conflicts into disagreements is what the Harvard Negotiation Project in their book Difficult Conversations calls grounding your identity. And the way you do that, or complexify your identity. So you could take those I am statements and make them more accurate. For instance, I realized one time that I had an identity of, I am a good speaker. Well, with that identity, when I was speaking or teaching, if somebody fell asleep, I got deeply offended. How could you possibly fall asleep because I'm a good teacher? So I learned this principle, and I actually took out a note card and wrote out the accurate details of speaking. Well, I have some speaking skill, and I know I still have room to improve. And I also know that some days I'm really on, and some days it just seems like my words trip over each other. And some days I'm tired, and some days I'm sick, and some days I've eaten well, and some days I haven't. Sometimes I speak when I'm sleep deprived or hungry. Sometimes it doesn't matter how well I speak because an excellent speaker just went before me and the people are comparing me to that person. Or they just watched a great speech on YouTube or something. Or that person has stayed up for 48 hours and it doesn't matter if the best speaker in the world is in front of them, they're going to fall asleep. So see how there's room now that I've complexified that identity for myself. There's room in my definition for somebody to fall asleep and me still to be okay, still be an okay speaker. Okay, P, process. We're going to talk about the 5 conflict styles later, and that's basically what the process is. How do we resolve the disagreements that we have? Do we avoid them? Do we accommodate them? Do we compete? Do we collaborate? Or do we compromise? And then systemic expectations. Whew, these really get interesting. So systemic expectations are every organization, every group of people has unspoken rules of how that group works. It's challenging to figure those things out sometimes. But the deal is, when you are in any place in this world, every group that you are a part of has unwritten expectations that affect you wherever you are. And those are the systemic expectations. For instance, I'm sitting here speaking. Well, I'm representing myself. I also am very aware that I need to behave in a way that my family will be okay with me sitting in front of this camera. I need to behave in a way so that my church family, which is also my place of employment right now, so my church family and my employer will be okay with the way I behave. I also am pretty aware that the people who trained me in conflict resolution skills will care what I say and don't say in this video. So all those systems, all those groups I'm a part of are affecting what I'm doing right now, whether I can verbalize that and realize it or not. There's another level of systemic expectations, and those are the rules, those norms that we create affect us deeply. For instance, my daughter was put in charge of doing the laundry in our house. And I went around with her and I drew lines at the top of the laundry baskets and said, the laundry must never go over those lines. That's your responsibility. She said, okay, Dad, I'll do that. A couple days later, I came in, there was laundry over the lines. I gave her the benefit of the doubt. Okay, it's an off day, we're just starting, so I'll give her a couple more days. A couple more days I came in, there was laundry above the lines, and I jumped all over her. I got onto her for not doing her job. Well, what I came to find out was, both of those mornings, she had got out of bed, gone down, emptied the laundry baskets, did all the laundry. And then right before I came home, one of her sisters, who had saved up their laundry, not maliciously, not intentionally, they just didn't even think about it, saved up their laundry, went down and dumped her laundry into the laundry baskets right before I got home, which made the laundry baskets full of laundry. So the laundry system in our house made it look like my daughter, who was in charge of the laundry, was not doing her job, when in fact she was. It's just that the system was broken. Systemic expectations can hit us that way too, and they're very important. When it looks like somebody is not doing well, we might, in many instances, look at the system to see if the system is making them not look well. You can find these principles and more in my book, Muddling Along, or Unity, Confessions of a Recovering Jerk. It's available at Amazon.com in print, Kindle, and audio format. To learn how to practice these principles with me, go to dialoguedojo.com.